Hello, little one. It seems as though game developers are obsessing over finding the golden formula to get the biggest buck. And by that I mean they spew the biggest bullshit they can come up with. Saying games without multiplayer doesn't sell is exactly like saying bricks without Wi-Fi don't sell. It's a load of fucking crock. Don't get me wrong, I do like multiplayer games, and I do play multiplayer from time to time, mostly in between finishing story-driven single-player games, but the statement that a game needs to have multiplayer to sell is BS, and I'll tell you why. First off, some of the highest rated games by reviewers are also only single-player. Look at BioShock, BioShock Infinite, Skyrim, Assassin's Creed, well, the first two Assassin's Creeds. Then there's also Half-Life 2, Zelda, Super Mario, Metroid, Portal, Mass Effect, the list can go on. All of these games got great reviews, and most of these didn't ever have multiplayer until the sequel of the game, if at all. And the sequel was always rated lower than the original. So, am I saying multiplayer ruins games? Absolutely I am. Take Assassin's Creed for example. The first time multiplayer was implemented in Assassin's Creed was in Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. Now personally, I really liked Brotherhood. I thought it was better than the first, but not quite as good as the second. However, the multiplayer wasn't great. It could be fun, but for the most part it was boring, and finding matches was like trying to find a pimple in between the skin folds of your scrotum. Good luck with that. Then the developers decided to focus more on multiplayer to make it better in Revelations. As a result, the single-player experience wasn't nearly as good. Granted, I still liked Revelations. It was an alright game, but it's definitely negatively impacted by the focus on multiplayer. So what happened next? Assassin's Creed 3 came along and it was a complete mess. I had critically renowned multiplayer and it was amazing, but the single-player experience sucked ass. I thought the developers would take the negative feedback on single-player as a sign to end the series, especially after spoiler alert. They killed off Desmond, the main fucking protagonist of the series since day fucking one. But no. They continued. And I haven't played Black Flag, but to me it seems like shit. I won't ever know it for sure until I try it, but if the history of Assassin's Creed repeats itself, I can guarantee you that Assassin's Creed 4 is worse than Assassin's Creed 3, which is worse than Assassin's Creed Revelations, which is worse than Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, which is when multiplayer was first introduced into the series, which is worse than Assassin's Creed 2, the last single-player only Assassin's Creed game. Let's take another game as example, Call of Duty. Now, the story in Call of Duty is absolute rubbish. But you know why that is? It's because it's not a single-player game. Call of Duty focuses on multiplayer. They couldn't care less about the story. The story can't be dumbed down because it's not there. Well, it is, but it was written by some middle school student who looked up pictures of Iraq on Google and then made up stories about how it is to fight wars there. Wait, what's that? They hired professional writers to write Call of Duty's story? Really? They paid them? Ouch. But I digress. Call of Duty is a multiplayer game, not a single-player game. It sells on multiplayer and it always has. Now let's look at the BioShock series. All of the games have amazing single-player experiences. They're immersive, interesting, hard to put down, and it's only single-player. Now, BioShock 2 came out and the developer said, "Harder games don't sell without multiplayer," so multiplayer was sort of awkwardly crammed in there. Now, I'm not saying BioShock 2 was bad by any means. It's one of the best games I've ever played, in fact. But it's definitely noticeably worse than the first one. As far as immersion and atmosphere goes, it's very immersive and it's very atmospheric, but not as much compared to the first one. I think it's because they focus too much on the multiplayer. It's just like Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. It's good, it's just not as good. Then there's Counter-Strike. Counter-Strike is a phenomenal video game. It's also a multiplayer-only game. There's no story to it at all, unlike Call of Duty where they tried to stuff story in there. It's probably one of the best multiplayer games out there, and it's only multiplayer. So, where am I going with this? You're probably thinking at this point, "What the fuck, Ben? You're flopping all over the place." No, I'm not. What I'm trying to say is multiplayer can be a good thing, so long as it's the only focus. If you put multiplayer into a single-player game or vice versa, the outcome will always be terrible. You need to focus on one or the other, not both. So stop flipping out about how Shadow of Mordor and the Order 1886 are single-player only games. That's probably a good thing. Now, I'm not too interested in either of those games. Shadow of Mordor looks alright, but the fact that they're only single player means that you should get a more polished story and atmosphere and an overall better playing experience. Anyways, what do you think of this? Do you have any arguments to counter mine? Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments. I'm an open-minded individual and I love to hear other opinions on these types of subjects. Goodbye, children. See you next time. I have some candy.